We're going to have a look at an overview of the optional placement year. You're going to find out more information about study abroad. You'll also hear from one of our study abroad students, Clara, who studied in Florida last year. You'll get some more information about volunteering as your optional placement year, more information about working, and then you'll also hear from Gabby Booth, a student who carried out a work-based optional placement year last year at the Home Office, some next steps and deadlines to take away, and then, as I said, an opportunity for some question and answers at the end. So, first and foremost, what is an optional placement year? An optional placement year is a placement year taken in your penultimate year, so i.e. in your third year for students on a 3-year course and in your fourth year for students on a 4-year course. So an optional placement year adds 1 year to your degree. So you have your first year, your second year, your placement year, and then you come back for your final year. The optional placement year is open to any student at the university who does not have the option to do a placement via their department year in industry or year in business programme. So this basically means if you're able to do a year in business or industry in your department or have an integrated year abroad as part of your modern languages or liberal arts degree, you must take your placement year via your department. The departments that have programmes are listed out below: biosciences, computer sciences, criminology, earth sciences, economics, electronic engineering, law and management. So if you're in one of these departments, you must do a work placement via this department route, unless there is a very valid reason why you cannot. However, if you're thinking about study abroad, you can switch from your year in industry or your year in business and come onto the optional placement year pathway where you can then do a study abroad opportunity. But regardless of your placement route, we just want to make it clear that you can still access all the resources available at the Careers Service to help you find your placement. And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail further on in the presentation. So just some important things to note about the optional placement year. A placement must be a minimum of 9 months and be no more than 12 months. You can work or volunteer for a placement, and these must be a minimum of 28 hours per week. Placements must start after the end of your summer term, 25-26, and next summer term, and finish before the start of the autumn term in 2027-28, which is effectively your final year. And we recommend that you only do one placement to get the most out of your experience. Now, if you do find more than one placement to make up that 9 to 12 months, that will be considered. So don't rule it out. But we do recommend that one placement is the better option just to get the most out of it. And obviously that's what a lot of employers will be offering as well. And when you do an optional placement year, as it's such an important part of your skills development and your university experience, your placement year will be formally recognised on your degree certificate, and it will contribute to your overall degree. You will be registered on a 30 credit module, and you'll be required to complete an assessment. And this is usually a reflective piece and is set by your department. Your degree at the end will then be changed to whatever degree you're on, so your degree title with a placement year. So it will be on your transcript. Now, international students can absolutely do an optional placement year. The eligibility, however, will depend on your individual circumstances and your visa type. So what we say is if you are an international student thinking of doing a placement year, please check your eligibility before you go down the route of searching for placements, etc. You can find out more information from the International Advice Office, and their email address is listed there. What I would say is we do have several international students doing a placement year, and it is usually a very straightforward process with your visa. But as I say, that is judged on a case-by-case basis, so I wouldn't be able to answer specifics in this presentation. So why would you think about doing an optional placement year? So it's an excellent way to build on your experience, a brilliant way to build networks and make valuable connections for your future. It may lead to a job when you graduate, and we do have students that have gone on to work for the places where they did their optional placement year. You'll develop your skills, which will obviously help to boost your CV and employability. And it can really help to build your confidence, and you'll likely return to your final year with a new perspective on your studies and the future. And this is always something that comes up in feedback we take, particularly around students' confidence and skills building. Just some things to consider though, a placement does extend your degree by a year. It can cost you more money, i.e., you will have additional university fees and the cost of potentially studying abroad. University fees, the university charges 20% of your annual fee for the placement year, which can be borrowed from student finance. But again, as I say, it does, cost you more money. You will move out of your current cohort of students, so you just need to consider things like your living arrangements for your final year, because obviously you may not be, in that cohort of students that you're currently in. Again, this is something that a lot of students overcome, and they end up living with people that have also done study abroad or done a placement year. So, but just something to bear in mind. And finally, it does require some hard work and dedication. It can be challenging to find a work placement, and you do have to go through a competitive process to secure a study abroad place. So again, just things to consider. It isn't necessarily easy to do a placement, whilst it is very, very worthwhile. So what can you do for an optional placement year? As I've touched upon, you can study abroad, you can volunteer, or you can do a work placement. And we're going to go through each of these individually now. So study abroad first. So study abroad as your optional placement year. You can take your year out to study at a partner university, and the list of international partner universities can be found in the link on the screen. As I said, these slides will also be available on the pathway afterwards if you want to look that up. So places are limited, and you will need to make a competitive application and go through an interview process with the study abroad team. Don't want to make that sound too scary. I was actually on the panel for that last year, and it's a great experience actually, and it is something that you would need to go through, but don't let that put you off. And the deadline for applications is the end of the autumn term this year, and the interviews and decisions are usually completed by the end of January. So this is something that if you're thinking about doing, you will need to really start the process as soon as possible this term, so that you can then get your application in time. And there's a QR code there to the Study Abroad webpage, which will obviously give you more details. Really great timing is that tomorrow is the Global Experiences Fair. It's being held in the atrium of the library building, and if you are thinking of study abroad, then I thoroughly recommend coming along to the fair, because there will be stalls for all the partner universities, and they will be manned by students who have been on a study abroad themselves to that particular university. They can tell you more about the experience and talk you through the process. There'll also be the study abroad team available to answer questions about the deadlines, and also things like when you need to apply, and etc. So it's a great opportunity to come and hear more firsthand from students. And on that note, we've got Clara with us, who did a placement year in Florida, which sounds amazing, last year. So Clara, over to you, and I'll share your slides so you can talk us through your experience.
Thank you very much. So hi everyone, I'm Clara, and I am a drama with acting student at Royal Holloway. I'm also an international student because I'm from France. So for every international student who are looking into study abroad, personally the visa application as an international student, well, French, so part of the European Union, was pretty easy. And also the study abroad team at Royal Holloway is really useful and helpful for if you have any questions or if you need any information about the whole process. So in my presentation, I'm going to talk more about my experience overall at the University of Florida. So I'm going to try to change slide. Hopefully you can see the slide. So I did my exchange through the Department of Liberal Arts and Science at UF, which meant that I could take a mix of modules I wouldn't normally have access to at Royal Holloway. Things like digital marketing, I even took Portuguese. So as long as your department approves it, you actually get a lot of freedom with a placement year compared to a traditional international year. Another difference with the international year was the workload. I had to take 12 credits per semester, which was based on the requirements in terms of US visa, whereas the international year students had to take 15 credits. Then regarding the difference between academic system, in the US, most of the classes were way more smaller. So they were more interactive, and participation counted a lot because it counted towards your final grade for the module. There was continuous assessment, which to me felt less intense than having one massive essay at the end of the semester or one big final exam. And it helped me stay organized and understand the material better. Next slide. So as you could expect, American universities are in general way bigger than the university we have in the UK. Just as an example, UF had over 1,000 clubs and societies, and most of the time the memberships were free. So there was really something for everyone. We had 7 libraries on campus, and in terms of access, we had free access to the gym, to Olympic pools, to small group workout sessions. So we had like yoga classes, kickboxing classes, loads that you could access to. If you also wanted to discover Florida a bit more, you had organized trips by the Rec Sports Center. And if you're into sports, most of the games there were free for students, or at least you could get discounted tickets, especially for football games, which is on the other slide. You also had free concerts, free events. Yes, you could basically never get bored on an American campus because there was always something happening, which was great. Then next slide. And in terms of support, one thing I really appreciated there was their support for exchange students. So from the International Students Office, firstly, because, for example, we had 2 hurricanes while I was in Florida, and we got a lot of informations given by them, and obviously reassured because they gave us all the information regarding electricity, because we're scared to not have electricity while hurricane, and also regarding all the assessment we had to do. Without electricity, how can you submit an essay, So they were here for you if you had any problem. Also, if you were struggling, because it's another country, it's another culture, so sometimes it's hard, especially when you're far from your family. So yeah, they were here for you if you had any question, any queries. And there was also a lot of programs which paired you with UF students that were considered as your mentors, and they help you settle in. So I listed a few that existed at UF, but I know it's like most of the American university have a lot of programs for international and just also exchange students that attend their university. And yes, one really important thing was the orientation week that happened before the first week of classes, where you get to meet all the other exchange students from all around the world. You also get like all the information regarding campus life, accommodations, transportation on campus. We had buses on campus because obviously it's a very big campus, and it was free for students. So again, another reassuring thing to know. Yes, the next slide. So what I learned during this exchange was mostly to be more independent, adaptable, and more confident, both academically and personally, because both culturally and in terms of academic. It's very different from the UK. Yes, doing this year abroad teach you a lot. Also met people from all around the world and even celebrated different traditions like Thanksgiving, tailgating. Also, Florida has a lot of Latinos, so learned a lot about this culture. And finally, the advices I would give to anyone thinking of going abroad, it would be to arrive curious, not comparative. Don't spend your time judging what's better or worse than home. Just experience it. Say yes to things, even if you're on your own. And I know it can be scary, but go to events, join clubs, especially because it's free. Talk to people, and yes, that's how you make the most out of it. And 1 year goes by very fast. So honestly, for me, it was the best things I've done during my degree. So yes, I encourage you.
It's amazing. Thank you so much. So brilliant to hear about your experience. And it sounds like you definitely recommend it to other students.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Are you going to hang about if there's any questions at the end?
Of course,
Oh,
yeah.
thank you. Thanks
And
so much, Clara.
I'll
Oh, you'll be
also
at the
be
fair
here.
tomorrow.
Yes, yeah. So if anyone
Perfect.
has
Brilliant.
questions.
Thank you. So yeah, moving on then to the next opportunity for optional placement year is volunteering. You can take up a voluntary placement for the year. We do obviously appreciate that a lot of these opportunities are not paid, so it can be financially, it could be difficult. And in that respect, there is the opportunity to perhaps do something volunteering for slightly shorter hours and then take up other paid work as well, but that is something that you would need to think about. So in terms of volunteering for your optional placement year, this year we have a student volunteering at the NHS as a befriender with patients and doing sort of mealtime work, sort of a lovely placement, was gaining of great experience. And then we also have someone volunteering with the New Black Film Collective. So in terms of volunteering, the best thing you can do is visit the volunteering hub. They have over 250 existing registered community partners, and they can sort of potentially pair you up with charities or not-for-profit organisations where you could volunteer. You can volunteer in the UK or overseas. We had a student the year before who volunteered in Sri Lanka, amazing placement for a year through one of our volunteering abroad partners. Placements can be flexible, as I said, or part-time to accommodate you working somewhere else if you needed to be earning some money while you're volunteering. And you will, whilst there's volunteering and the perception is that might not be very formal, you will have a structured period of work with somebody managing and overseeing you. So it is still an amazing thing to do for the year, and you'd still gain fantastic skills that you can use on your CV and in the future. Also, if you have your own organisation in mind who are not already registered with the volunteering team, that's absolutely fine. We can arrange for them to be a registered volunteering partner with Royal Holloway, and you can still volunteer with them. So to find out more about volunteering, there's a QR code that you can use to scan and go onto the volunteering platform. There's also a link on the slide. Again, as I said, these will be shared out to you. So yeah, do bear that in mind if you're thinking about volunteering for your optional placement year. That is definitely an option for you. So last but not least, we're looking at work placements. So these are placements where you obviously go and you do a piece of paid or sometimes unpaid work for a minimum of 9 months, maximum of 12 months. And again, that has to be a minimum of 28 hours per week. You are responsible for sourcing your own placement, but there are many resources available to you at the Careers Service, which I'll touch upon a little bit later on. But yeah, just to sort of reiterate, we don't find placements for students, but we will help you with things like your CVs, where to look, all of those sorts of things. And we do also have links with places like the NHS and some placements where we've placed students before, so we can offer some guidance around perhaps places to approach for your placement. So yeah, please come to us if you want some advice around that. Ultimately, your work placement must be signed off as suitable by the university. So that is us just looking at the placement, the content of the placement, to make sure that we deem it suitable to be signed off. But I just want to say that, you know, that is quite flexible. We had a student 2 years ago who assisted the Italian rowing team for a year as their optional placement year. Amazing experience. So, you know, if you're thinking of doing something a little bit out of the ordinary, that is a possibility. Obviously, we'll need to look at it, but yeah, you know, the possibilities are there to do something slightly different. So recent work placements have included students going to NBC. We've had student at Adobe, National Air Traffic, Network Rail, Disney, the Home Office, which we'll hear from Gabby in a minute. And we've also do place quite a lot of psychology students within the NHS, and that also includes things like Talking Therapies, the Brain Injury Service, Maggie's Cancer Charity. So again, as I said earlier, I can offer advice about where students have gone in the past and where might be good for you to approach for a placement. And some of our recent student feedback obviously is there for you to see on the screen, but students have said they've made great networks, connections, and boosted their CV. It's helped them figure out what they want to do in the future, gave them a whole year of hands-on experience, and they actually still work there. So it gave them that competitive edge over job applications. And actually, we do see that this year, for example, a couple of our students have stayed on at their work placement in a sort of part-time capacity, giving them a little bit of extra money while they're at university, and obviously continuing to build on their skills and experience. Well, someone said it was the best year of their life at university, so that's amazing. So I'm going to hand over to Gabby, who did an optional placement year at the Home Office last year. Just flick onto your slide. So yeah, over to you, Gabby. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. So hi, yeah, I'm Gabby. I did my placement year last year. So I applied to the Government Social Research Student Sandwich Scheme. This is a very long-winded title, but it's essentially just the placement year option for the analytical profession known as Government Social Research, which aligns very closely with psychology and psychological research methods, which is what my degree is in. So through this placement scheme, I was placed within the Home Office, and then within that, I sat underneath the Homeland Security Policy Group. So that is the kind of like policy focus of all my work and my research over the past year. In terms of the office itself, it was based in Westminster. It's a little bit further away from Whitehall, where like most of the other government departments are. It's down Marsham Street, which is a little bit quieter, but still central London. So it's still quite exciting to go to the office there. And I'm not sure if anyone's heard about the office, but it is very fancy in my opinion. There is a nail salon and a hair salon and a spa. Not that I'm aware anyone's actually used it before, but it is there. So it's a very nice office to be working in. With regards to the placement itself, there's obviously a variety of skills that I've developed and taken away from my placement over the past year. And I think the most obvious would be the kind of like technical skills that I've gained from working there. So when I say technical skills, I'm kind of referring to the analytical tools and research methodologies that I used to conduct research over the past year. So there was some quantitative analysis and presentation of statistics. However, I had some experience with quantitative analysis in my degree previously. So I went into my placement knowing that I wanted to get a bit more hands-on qualitative analysis experience. And I did just that. So my main focus was on developing my qualitative skills, and I got placed on various projects such as rapid reviews, which are kind of very short literature reviews to summarize lots of information, for example, from academic papers quickly, and then essentially presenting all of this information in a slide pack or a PowerPoint presentation and sending that off to whoever the customer is. And then I was also part of quite a big piece of evaluation, which involved like primary data collection through interviews. So we interviewed various operational stakeholders within the National Crime Agency and the kind of other policing areas. And then we analysed this data using a thematic analysis method. And this was quite an exciting project to be a part of. Took around a year to complete, so it was quite long, but it meant that I got to get a lot of kind of hands-on experience with the analysis and data collection itself, but also meant that I got to work with a variety of other analysts and policy members, and lots of presentation to quite senior stakeholders as well, which in of itself presented me with a variety of skill development. So those were kind of like the main two areas of like technical skills that I focused on in the previous year. But obviously alongside this, there was a lot of kind of like softer, more transferable skills that I also managed to develop. And I've picked out what I think the main three are for this sort of area of work. So specifically kind of like research and social research. So the first of which is presentation skills. So this included like presenting to seniors, whether this be like senior analysts or potentially like senior policy directors. So like I said in the slide, like both analytical and non-analytical audiences, meant that I had to change how I was presenting to different audiences. So there's a bit of nuance when I say presentation skills. It does have to be kind of tailored to who you're presenting to, but it's all skills that you're kind of helped and supported on to develop over the year. And I remember when I first started my placement, I was so nervous to ever present to anyone. And by the end of the year, I was presenting to, you know, a team of 20 policy stakeholders that are like 5 grades higher than me, which is like, would have terrified me before, but by the end of the year with a lot of practice, I was quite comfortable to explain quite technical terms to them. So it was definitely a worthwhile skill to start developing. The other one I've mentioned is teamwork and collaborative working. Obviously, it is a massive community of analysts that I was working with in my own directorate, in my own kind of like area that I was in. I think there was about 100 of us that we worked quite closely together. So this meant that you were working with a number of people from various teams. So they'd be economists, social researchers, statisticians. So you work with various professions, as well as various policy members and potentially project delivery members, as well as more external people such as like people from the NCA or other operational stakeholders. So you do get to work with a range of people over the year. And it is incredibly important to be able to develop that teamwork skill and be able to like collaboratively work with them. You know, you have to like rely on each other to get a piece of analysis done. You have to be able to update each other on any new advances in the research. And so it meant that there was a lot of catch-ups and a lot of explaining little nuances to each other. But it was really fun, and it meant that you got to meet a lot of lovely new people as well. And then finally, I've also mentioned written communication. As I previously mentioned, there was a lot of qualitative analysis that I got to get involved in, such as literature reviews. And obviously the findings of this have to be written down and communicated somewhere. And so a lot of the time this was in slide packs, or whether it be like a 1 or 2 page draft in Word or something to senior analysts. We essentially had to make sure that we were getting a lot of technical information down and summarizing it into a very kind of like short draft, for example. So definitely like making sure that we're adequately communicating complex findings for colleagues that might not have the time to read the whole analysis. So we're just kind of getting the key headline findings across to them. That was a very important skill to develop. And then I've also mentioned lots of emails on there because at the end of the day, it is a corporate role and you do have those corporate responsibilities, such as replying to emails. But you kind of do pick up on like corporate etiquette over the year and with the help of other people, understanding things like various abbreviations. There are so many abbreviations that you just eventually pick up on, and they become part of your everyday language. And Also, sometimes I had to email findings to internal and external analysts or colleagues, and this meant that you had to follow a template, for example, and make sure that you're writing it word for word exactly how it needs to be said, how it's been done before. So there's a lot of kind of like things to consider within written communication, and even within emails. Like, it seems so silly, but it is just one of those things. And then I quickly wanted to touch on kind of like more personal skills I've developed over the year. So definitely understanding of how the government works. I didn't realize how little I understood before I started my placement, but it was things so simple as like understanding just how big a department like the Home Office is, how many analysts work there, how many policy colleagues work there, how they interact with ministers or how they interact with private offices. It was not something that I was fully aware of before, and it's definitely still not something that I fully understand now. But I am a lot more familiar with it now after having worked in that sort of environment over the past year. So that's kind of been really insightful to pick up on, I think, through my placement. And then I've also mentioned things like workplace dynamics and corporate culture, which I think I've like briefly touched on. But like I said, when I first entered the workplace, there was a lot of abbreviations. There was a lot of, corporate etiquette within the office itself, like dress codes or like where do you sit, how do you book a desk. It's kind of like little things that you don't really think about, but actually takes quite a lot of time and a lot of effort getting used to. And having done that on my placement year, it definitely makes me feel more confident for when I return to work after I graduate, that I sort of don't need to completely re-socialize, and I've already got a familiar sense of how that sort of corporate world works. And then finally, I've mentioned networking, and I think this is a massive one, and I feel like people always say it, and I didn't realize just how important it was until I completed my placement. But definitely making those kind of like very valuable connections, especially with more senior analysts. So for example, like my manager's manager and their manager and so on. But just like essentially getting your foot in the door and getting to know these people so that if you were to return, you can go say hi and they know who you are. And it just really does open up a lot of opportunities if you do already have those connections when you return to work. And not only like upwards and with seniors, I think more so with students as well, like other students and other kind of like lower graded analysts. So I was quite lucky. We had quite a big student network. I think that we knew of, there was about 200 students across the various government departments. And of that, I think there was about 60 of us that were based in London. In the Home Office itself, I think we had about 12 students. We were definitely one of the bigger departments. But it was great because I meant that there were so many other students that were coming into the office every day with me. There was a lot of other students that were in like a similar position to me who maybe were a bit more shy and didn't really understand the office and didn't know everyone else either. So we kind of definitely bonded over the year and we were there for each other. And it also meant that we got to do a lot of fun activities as students. So I've got a couple pictures on there. So we went to go visit other government departments such as FCDO, which is incredibly beautiful on the inside. We went and did Parliament tours, which were free because we were in the civil service. So that was really exciting and also just a nice excuse to get out of the office for half of the day. And then towards the kind of end of our placement, we also did a placement student boat party, which was down the River Thames, which was really exciting. And it was a really nice way to see a lot of the students before. And both at Christmas and just before the boat party, we also had student like networking and insight days where we had seniors or ex-MPs or ex-placement students come talk to us and tell us, like, give us some insight into their lives and what their kind of like day-to-day life looks like. Sorry. So yeah, all in all, I think that is a very, very kind of like high level overview of my placement and the sort of skills that I've picked up from it. But I would 100% recommend the GSR or the GES placement scheme to anyone considering it. it is a very like well-structured placement scheme. Everyone that I worked with and all the other students said that their teams were incredibly supportive of them. I think because it is quite a well-established placement scheme, they definitely do have the right kind of like tools and plans in place for students and making sure that they get the most out of it. Having done the placement scheme as well, it meant that I got to fast track an application. So every year the Home Office, or the civil service rather, runs external HTO or like research officer recruitment rounds, which is kind of like entry level, like grad level roles into the civil service, specifically into kind of like social research. But we got to fast track an application, and we got obviously incredibly like tailored support from managers and other people in our team. And it luckily meant that I passed the application stage, and I've been given the offer of a grad job to return to next year. So as Laura mentioned previously, it is like placement schemes are amazing for like finding grad jobs and setting yourself up for future work. But yeah, overall it was just a brilliant experience. Like I cannot fault it in any way. I met so many people and made so many friends. Like I feel like it's very cliche to say I made like lifelong best friends there, but honestly there was like all the students are there for a reason, and they're all incredibly amazing people to be working with. Yeah, it was like a very valuable experience and a very fun one. It meant that I got to work in central London for a year as well. But yeah, if there's any questions, I'll stick around to answer them, but hopefully that gives you some insight into my placement.
That sounds absolutely brilliant, and thank you for sharing it with us, and also congratulations on a graduate job offer. That is absolutely amazing. Can I just ask you, did you set out to do a placement year when you joined Royal Holloway, or was it just something you thought about doing when you hit the second year?
Yeah, I definitely didn't join the university thinking I wanted to do a placement year. I think I started second year, and it kind of got to a point where I was like, oh, I don't think I'm actually ready to graduate next year. I definitely want a bit more experience. I'm not sure if other courses have it, but I know in psychology we had a careers and employability module, and I heard from a previous placement student, and she was raving about it as well. So I thought I'd have a little look. I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do my placement in, but luckily I managed to somehow find this one online. And yeah, everything worked out after that.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Gabby. It's really brilliant to hear about your placement. And yeah, thanks for sticking around. If anyone's got any questions, Gabby, at the end, and obviously either put them in the chat or I'll ask in person if you like. So yeah, if you're thinking about doing a work placement, what support can you get from the Careers Service? You can come along and see us in the Employability Hub, which is in the Library Building, EWD. We have a drop-in service Monday to Friday from 10 till 4 during term time. You can book one-to-one guidance appointments on the Careers portal, where you can meet employability staff to help with things like your CV, just sort of general, discussion about your career. We have lots of sector themed weeks, careers and placements fairs. One's just happened yesterday, and we'll have another one in the spring term. You can also use our digital tools and resources, which I'll show you on a slide coming up. But yeah, there's plenty to get involved with. We really recommend that you come along in person to the Careers Service, pop in. We're really friendly. Come in and have a chat. You can also book one-to-ones with the optional placement year team, where we can sit with you and go through the process, talk about anything that might be concerning you, help with CVs, anything you can think of to do with optional placement year. We're here for you, either on email, or as I say, you can book an appointment on the careers portal to come and see us face to face. So some of the digital platforms that we have in the Careers Service, obviously we've got the careers portal, where you can search for jobs. There are 100 plus vacancies at any one time, registered by employers that we have links with. You can use Student Circus, is more relevant for international students, and there's lots of information on there about sort of visa sponsored jobs and resources, etc. Shortlist Me is a fantastic tool where you can get guidance on your job applications. You can do sort of do dummy interviews and just really get sort of into practice for your job search. There's also Graduate First, where you can gain insights and support for aptitude tests, assessments, questionnaires that you might get asked when you're applying for jobs. And CareersSet, I thoroughly recommend. If you haven't seen it or used it, we have signed up to it as the university. So you literally log in using your university email address, and you can use this AI tool to check your CV. You can use it to put in job adverts, and then put your application in to check that you have sort of, you know, hit the brief, that you've tailored your application well, that your CV looks good for the role that you're applying for. So it's a really, really great tool. And what we recommend is that you use this first and then come and see us to sort of check what you've done on your CV. When you go onto the optional placement year pathway on the careers portal, you'll get more information about CareerSet, but there's also a really helpful CV template to use that shows you how we recommend doing your CV. So all of these things are there to help you gain that all important placement. So yeah, this again, these are all here for you to take a shot of, but also obviously, as I said, we'll share this after the presentation. So just to summarise then, the next best things to do are to enrol on the optional placement year Moodle and also the careers portal on the Pathway. The Pathway is a really great tool which really just brings together all the things I've just talked about, the processes. There'll be a copy of this recording for you to look back on if there's anything you want to recap. There'll be information about CareerSet. There'll be lots of information about where to find a placement, how to do your LinkedIn profile, links to sign up to the LinkedIn Day. So yeah, a whole sort of raft of information on the Pathway. Ultimately, you do not commit to an optional placement year by signing on to the Pathway, by signing on to Moodle. You are never ever committed to a placement year until you secure a placement and get it signed off from the university. So never worry about signing up to anything and everything. Just do whatever you need to do, and then ultimately your placement year will not be added to your degree until you have found a placement and it's been signed off by the university. So if you're just thinking of dipping your toe in, like a bit like Gabby, you're not sure if it's something that you want to do, maybe you want to go and talk to more students about it or come and speak to us, all of these things are available to you, and you're not committing to anything until you've found that placement or secured a study abroad. And just lastly, there's a dedicated optional placement year email, which obviously you can reach out to us at any time if you've got any questions, or as I say, if you want to come and see us. So yeah, just lastly, these are the essential resources. So the Moodle is here and the careers portal. So please do sign up to both of those if you're thinking about doing an optional placement year. And I can't reiterate enough that it doesn't commit you to it. It's just a way of you finding out as much information as possible. So that concludes the sort of overview and the presentation of the optional placement year. Thank you so much for coming along to the session. I'm just going to look at the chat and see if there are